In this video, I'll discuss the term uptime as it pertains to data storage and cloud solutions. It should come as no surprise to anyone that business downtime damages productivity and that network downtime affects business continuity. According to one study, work interruptions can waste up to 6 hours per day. It can take 23 minutes and 15 seconds for employees to recover from interruptions in work, and that interruptions consume 28 billion people hours a year and cost the U.S. economy $1 trillion per year. There's any number of factors that can affect your organization's uptime and bring things to a grinding halt, but here are some of the more common factors. Hardware failures, software failures, security-related incidents, and of course, human error. And uptime has some common characteristics, requirements to ensure high availability for your data. There's speed, the time it takes to access your data on an ongoing basis. This can refer to a combination of factors. You may have heard terms like latency, response time, and bandwidth, terms of great interest to network administrators. There's traffic, the demands for information coming into your network. Redundancy is the principle that information stored on servers is duplicated on other servers, often in other geographic locations, to ensure that information will be available even if a server goes down. And rapid deployment is the principle that new resources will be made available if traffic demands threaten to overwhelm a server. Factors relating to uptime to consider include whether you'll be storing information in a public or private cloud. In a private cloud, you can dedicate your own resources, but you may not have the ability to rapidly scale. In a public cloud, you should understand your provider and what commitments they've made to uptime. Single points of failure, or SPOFs, have a huge effect on uptime if they exist, so it's important to eliminate them. You should understand the level of redundancy that you can provide. And what kind of failure detection mechanisms are in place to avoid failure incidents before they occur. In this video, I'll discuss practical applications for cloud computing that can be leveraged by businesses. There's plenty to be excited about in cloud computing, and the number and levels of services you can access have never been more robust. There are 7 top uses for the cloud according to IBM, and they are Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS, and Platform as a Service, or PaaS, Private and Hybrid Clouds, Data Backup, Testing and Development, Disaster Recovery, File Storage, and Big Data Analytics. There's a growing number of use cases for the cloud, and here are just a few established ones. Scalable usage, where companies can grow and shrink their service on an as-needed basis and pay for just what they use. Chatbots, the automated services that we're seeing across a variety of platforms like voice-enabled home assistants. Communication, using new tools to communicate and collaborate like Skype, SharePoint, and Teams, for example. Productivity, using tools like the kind you'll find in Office 365 and other business suite apps. And business process tools like CRM software. Also being done in the cloud, there's plenty of examples of backup and recovery implementations, making it easier for organizations to safeguard their data. Application development, taking advantage of tools and sandboxes in the cloud. Testing and development, now easier than ever using testing and collaboration environments. Big data analytics, giving organizations access to tools they didn't have access to before. And whether you realized it or not, social networking sites, including the big ones, are using cloud computing. In this video, I'll discuss common myths and misconceptions about the cloud. There's a common element to the misconceptions and myths of the cloud, and it seems that they're usually associated with either a focus on the protection of information or a lack of understanding of what the cloud provides. The 4 big myths generally are that there's no privacy, no security, no trust, and no control over your information. Now, these points represent extremes, and certainly it's important to understand how each element is impacted by a cloud solution. But generally, what we're seeing when issues are encountered with cloud safety is that they aren't related to the underlying technology, but a more common cause of error: humans. According to Gartner's 2018 cloud research, the challenge exists not in the security of the cloud itself, but in the policies and technologies for security and control of the technology. In nearly all cases, it is the user, not the cloud provider, who fails to manage the controls used to protect an organization's data. And look, this is not new. There's an old adage in the IT support world that computer problems are 5% hardware, 10% software, and 85% human error. So it's important to remember the need to understand the technology before it can be effectively used. And personnel need to be well trained and policies well developed. I have a few more myths for you about the cloud. One size fits all. That's not the case, and every implementation needs to be designed around an organization's needs. The myth that the cloud is self-reliant. You just set it and go. Like any IT system, you need to configure it and manage it, but now you have experts on the back end helping you to do most of the heavy lifting. And there's a myth that the cloud is less expensive than owned infrastructure. It can be, there's no doubt about that. But again, every organization is different, and the cost of ownership is related to an organization's understanding of its needs and finding the right fit for it. And then there's the myth that the cloud is difficult to adopt, that it's going to be a pain to make the move. And that's simply not the case, but there may be an upfront curve in planning, and training will mitigate most issues associated with any kind of migration. And here's a fact, again from Gartner. Organizations that lack a high-level cloud strategy risk wasted investment and failure. And this goes back to the point on the previous slide about cost. The takeaway here should be that it's the responsibility of any organization to map out and strategize their technology deployment, but the benefits of a successful migration cannot be overstated.